Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And prior to we start, just all cell phones, electronic devices be turned off during the duration of the meeting. And thanks for your cooperation in that. Just a couple announcements prior. Board meetings are broadcast over Channel 28, Comcast, Verizon Fios Channel 32, and our live stream on our district website, as well as recorded for future broadcast. So at this time, we invite everybody to stand for a silent reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So we're here tonight for the special meeting at 6 o'clock in Dorothy Cole Building to adopt the final operating budget for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023. So seeing no public comment, we'll move on to the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Price. We have a short presentation tonight. Basically, we're just going to show where we started back in February and all the changes that we've made since February up until this date and time. Some of the changes you'll be familiar with because we've gone over them in budget presentations 2, 3, and 4. Some of them are new because there were some decisions made subsequent to that last budget hearing. And then there are 3 additional slides that Dr. Lee asked me to include, basically going over our tax rate, the homestead, and what the millage increase is. So if you can go to the first slide, please. You don't.
It's on the board docs.
Okay, I can't operate from board docs, but all right. Give me a half a second.
Yeah, I mailed it to.
Nope.
Everybody. Okay, so that's okay. Thank you. So the first slide, like I said, shows us where we were preliminarily back in February. This was our first iteration of the budget. Budgeted expenditures back in February were $168,202,523. Budgeted revenues were $167,717,803 for a draw on fund balance of $484,720. Next slide, the changes to expenditures since that first iteration. You can see the Lower Bucks Vocational Technical School projection came down from their preliminary to their final. It was reduced by $179,961. Next line, unfortunately, our healthcare costs continue to increase with each look we got. So we had the second look, the third look, and the final look. And from the inception until today, there was an increase of $284,101. Our vision cost went up by $55,902. Here's a big one. I'm sure everybody's familiar with this. Our fuel costs from February have gone up $374,936. My understanding last month, the board had agreed to include Chromebooks from K to 12 for an additional increase of $800,000. We factored in the attritional savings from all the teachers and staff that have retired and replaced them with projected starting salaries that are much lower. That projected savings is $644,662. New positions, which we'll go over on the next page, are at $184,134. And changes to federal programs, and this is not a good one because the changes to the federal programs are due to a reduction in our funding that we received last month. So we reduced our expenditures accordingly by $75,725. So the net change to our expenditures from February are a net increase of $798,725. Next slide just goes over the changes to our revenues. If you recall, we had an increase in our assessed value that equated to an increase in real estate tax revenue projections of $279,794. What we just mentioned, the decrease in federal funding of $75,725. Decrease due to attritional savings. And what I mean by that, we had the savings on the expenditure side, but the state government reimburses us for salaries, for our PSERS expenses, and for our Social Security. So when our expenses for our salaries go down, those corresponding revenues also go down. So that revenue decrease is $95,711, and that corresponds to the $600,000 attritional savings. Interest income we increased due to the recent Fed increases by $96,153. It's still well below where we were 5 years ago, but it's helpful, and if they continue to rise like they look like they're doing, we may be much better off there as well. We discussed this at our last business affairs meeting, the increase in the transportation subsidy. Our acting transportation person was able to identify some areas that were not properly reported in the past, and it means an additional $113,000 each and every year going forward. And we were able to go back 2 years, which will mean an additional $250,000, or approximately $226,000 for our district to recoup monies from prior years. So that's some good news. And increase due to added positions. Again, with the added positions, there's additional expenses, and we get reimbursement on half of the PSERS as well as half of the Social Security. So the net change to our revenues was $337,380. Going over the added positions, we have a high school art teacher, an IT secretary to full-time, and the director of special services to assistant to the superintendent. You can see the corresponding salaries. The high school art teacher is $66,000, benefits is $54,000 for a gross cost of $120,000. When we back out the state reimbursement of $14,000, that net cost is approximately $106,000. The IT secretary from half-time to full-time is additional $20,090 in salaries. The benefit cost is mainly due to healthcare costs that the employee is now eligible for. We typically budget for the most expensive plan until we know exactly what plan, so that number may be less depending on what they elect. And the $6,500 increase for that assistant to the superintendent position. And you can see the gross cost of $184,134, which you see back in those expenditure increases. The state reimbursement of $19,870, which you see in the revenues, and that net increase would be $164,264. So Next slide, please. So the final budget after our changes. So again, our preliminary budget was $168,202,000. We added the additional expenditures of $798,725. And you can see the final budgeted expenditures, which ties in with the 2028, the budget document they have of $169,001,248. Preliminary budget for revenues was at $167,717,803. We add the changes of $337,380. The final budget of revenues come in at $168,055,183. That shows a draw on fund balance of $946,065. Now, one thing I'd like to always let our board know, we have in our budget contingency of $600,000. State does not permit you to overspend your budget. So if there is an unforeseen condition like a boiler blowing up or whatever, we have money in what we call the contingency. District cannot spend it unless the board authorizes a transfer from that account to another account. So this is money that cannot be spent without board approval, but it's there and it's not earmarked for any expenditure except for an unanticipated expenditure. So when you reduce that drawdown by the contingency, that shows an actual draw on fund balance of $346,065. This is by far the smallest drawdown that the district had during my 6 years with the district. The one thing I always like to mention to our board, the expenditure budget is worst case scenario. Typically, we only spend about 99 to 99.5% of our budgeted expenditures. So you could see probably close to $1 million less what our actual numbers come in. And the same thing is true for your revenues. Typically, we receive 100 to 101%. And so if everything goes according to what we think is going to happen, there should be another surplus for our district for the fourth consecutive year. So we think, in all the time that I've been here, this is the most optimistic budget that we've ever presented. So next slide, please. How does Ben Salem average tax bill compare with the rest of the county? Ben Salem has the second lowest average tax bill in the county behind Bristol Borough. And that average tax bill is based on the average assessed value times our millage rate. Now, our millage rate is not the second lowest, but when you factor in what our assessment and the millage rate is, we come out to the second lowest average tax bill. Our millage rate is towards the middle. I think we're at the middle, but maybe one higher up. So we're in the upper tier, but towards the middle in millage rate. Next slide, please. Does the budget include a tax increase? It does. The board had authorized previously a 1.7% increase. Our current millage rate is 164.9508. With that 1.7% increase, that would bring our millage to 167.755, an increase of 2.8042 mils. Next slide, please. Did the homestead allocation change this year? Yes. So for the first time since Act 1 was incepted, I believe that's 16 years ago, the state increased the homestead allocation, and it did so pretty significantly. Back the current year, we had 12,007 homesteads, and the allocation from the state was $2,270,555, which equated to a reduction for every approved homestead of $189. This year, that increased to $2,861,966 for 11,657 approved homesteads. So that reduction this year will be $246. So each approved homestead will receive an additional reduction of $57 per homestead. Reason we mention this, the median homestead in Ben Salem is $22,920. The median tax bill was $3,780.67, less that $189 homestead. So the median tax bill, when you factored in the homestead, was $3,500 $591.67. This year, the median tax bill is $3,844.94 based on the increased millage. But when you factor in the increased homestead, that tax bill is $3,598.94. That's an increase of $7.27 for the entire school year. Or when you look at it on a per-day basis, it's 2 cents per day. So that's our presentation. Any questions from the board members?
John, just a question. I know we're waiting to hear from the state.
That's
Is
correct.
our what we put in our budget, is that still in line? Have we had any confirmation that we're good with that number?
Dr. Lee and myself, we talked to Senator Tomlinson's office, and we shared with them what we budgeted, and on both occasions, Dr. Lee talked to them, and I talked to them separately. They said we should be fine with what we've budgeted.
The macro conversation in Harrisburg is the Republican caucus is somewhere between 500 million and 600 million for basic ed subsidy, and the Democrats are still at the budget that the governor presented in February, which is over $5 billion. So yeah, it is. So, but anywhere between there is better than what we have in our budget currently.
So even on the low side, it still works out to what we had talked about.
That's what we've been told by the senator's office, yes.
We're probably going to meet somewhere above that number, and it reflects better for us.
I hope so and agree it would.
What I saw, I pulled this data up, this was just released, there's the BEF. For the proposed 2022-23, they're at 21.1. And we're saying 16.1, correct?
Yeah, we're 16,841,750. Yep.
So that's the proposed, so that's a significant, that's 40% based on what was estimated for. So my question is, again, that there's a significant difference there of what that proposal is based on what we're offering or we're putting together through the budget here.
Yeah, if we get what is proposed in the governor's budget, I mean, the district would be in incredible shape financially.
Yeah, but even falling short of that, half of that, I mean, that's quite a difference than where we're at 1.8 before adding these other things here.
That's correct. We were very conservative and typically don't budget any type of increase. But everything we've been hearing, this is the first time in 30 years that I've budgeted increase, and everything we're hearing is we should be fine with this. And in fact, we're hopeful it's going to be significantly higher is what our thought is.
That's why I was advocating for a small tax decrease. And the competitiveness in me, and we can decrease in the taxes. And my competitiveness is, that we'd be lower than Bristol. I didn't realize that, That's what I wanted to do, was to go with a tax decrease.
I do want to.
State numbers might be a
mention-
lot better than what
They
we're
may
seeing
be,
here.
but the one thing that we've discussed back from February and each subsequent meeting is district still has to make up for our ESSERS funding. If we get the governor's budget, we've made up for our ESSERS funding and then some. But until you know what you're getting from the governor's budget, I still think you need to start making up your ESSERS funding, just to be prudent fiscally. Any other questions? Okay, well, that's the presentation. Thank you.
So I'll go ahead and read this motion in 4.01, final operating budget. Motion to approve a budget resolution 4.01 to 4.08. Item 1, that the final operating budget reflecting revenues of 168,055 got me there. $168,055,181 and expenditures in the amount of $169,001,248, with the difference between the level of expenditures and revenues being addressed by a drawdown of $946,067. Got me. From the fund balance, but be approved for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023, that the grant revenues and expenditures be approved pending receipt of awards estimated to a total of $8,493,692 for the fiscal year 2022-2023. Item 2, that the committed fund balance, which stands at $22,527,394 as of June 30th, 2021, is anticipated to be $11,098,071 as of June 30th, 2022. Item 3, that the millage rate for the real estate for the 2022-2023 fiscal year be set at 167.75 mils, and that a discount of 2% be allowed on payments of real estate tax within 60 days of date of bill, and that a penalty of 10% be added on payment made after 120 days. Item 4, that the following taxes be levied: A, real estate treasurer tax, Act 511 at 1%, occupational privilege tax, Section 3007 at $10, mercantile tax, Section 3013 at $25 per license, 1 mil on annual gross wholesale business, and 1 1/2 mils on annual gross retail and personal services business. Business privilege tax, PL 1257 at $25 per license, 1 mil on annual gross wholesale business, and 1 1/2 mils on annual gross retail and personnel businesses. Public outdoor parking tax, Section 3001 at 25 cents. Vending machine tax, PL 1257 at $8 each mechanical amusement device, $55 each jukebox, $15 each vending machine charging over 5 cents, $15 each vending machine charging over 5 cents, $15 each service machine. Item 5, that the Board of School Directors shall continue its authorization on June 6, 1976 to grant senior citizens property tax assistance in accordance with the definition and schedule set forth in the board's resolution as amended. Item 6, that the Board of School Directors shall continue to its authorization of June 11, 1975 to send all interim taxes, Act 110, for collections to the Office of the Township Treasurer throughout the 2022-2023 fiscal year for processing. Item 7, that the homestead property owners be entitled to avail themselves of the real estate tax installment payment plan adopted by the Board of School Directors on April 25th, 2027. The due dates for the established installment payments shall be September 1st, October 16th, and December 1st of the year of the tax levied. The business owners and all other non-homestead properties be entitled to avail themselves of the real estate tax installment plan offered to the homestead property owners with the same due dates. This is in compliance with the legislation of 2011, which mandates such a plan for small business owners. Item 8, that the Board of School Directors approve the resolution that homestead and farmstead exclusions, real estate tax assessment reductions, and authorized for the school year beginning July 1st, 2022, under the provisions of the Homestead Property Exclusion Program Act, part of Act 50 of 1998, and the Taxpayer Relief Act, Act 1 of 2006. That's a motion to approve the budget resolutions. Anybody? Motion to approve the budget resolutions?
So moved.
I'll second it, Petty John.
Questions, comments, concerns?
It's more of a comment. My vote this evening is more to do out of principle. There have been multiple times when people asked for questions and information and it was not received. There were a few people that asked for a sharpening of pencils and no information was dispersed. An accounting of the personnel that would be changed, if there would be any. And nothing was received until I sent an email, I think it was last week, maybe the week before. Ever since I was done work, the days kind of run together. So for me, it's, oh, and there's also a position in there which I will get to at the next meeting. So for me, my vote is mainly a matter of principle.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Harder? Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
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 Aye.
I'm also a nay.
So we can talk about options. We do have to pass a budget by June 30th, so I don't know whether we want to have a special meeting or something like that. Could do that too.
Can we get information with a zero tax increase? And
Thing that Heather.
I don't think anybody's coming back.
Let's get it done now.
We can appreciate that comment. We can certainly get it done now. We could always recess and it's the same meeting, but you want- I mean, I guess, what does the board look like? I mean, what do you think we get 5 votes?
So should we break the executive session?
Well, it's not, look, to be clear, we can't really deliberate the budget in executive session, so, I mean, it might be helpful for the administration just to, what do we think we get 5 votes?
I'm more than happy to, I wanted to decrease, but as long as it's a 0% tax decrease with no changes in positions or anything, just changing these figures to a 0.
And that would mean a larger draw on fund balance.
Correct.
I think
You know, if
State
we
doesn't come in with even more, so,
think of the future boards too. Think of the future boards when we're all gone here, leaving in the school district in distress.
Yeah, kicking the can down the road isn't always the best option. So I know today it looks good, but 4 years from now, then you're just going to be looking at a monster increase to offset what we've decided was right for today isn't right for 4 years from now. And that was part of the bigger discussion throughout the budget meetings. Was that as much as what is it, $7 a year annually, John, on average? I think Mr. Steffi, I'm sorry. So I don't think that's a big burden. I think there's a lot more big burdens that are unattested. I think this is the right thing to do, just based on the fact that you're simply kicking the can down the road, and you'll be sitting here in 4 years saying, how are we going to make up this monster deficit? It's not right. I don't think that's responsible.
Did we ever get a breakdown of the positions that are in the budget that we're retaining or are empty and looking at being filled in the future? Have we ever seen that yet?
You have, Mr. President.
miss it?
I shared a spreadsheet Friday morning or Friday early afternoon. I responded to an email on Thursday related to Mrs. Nicholas's questions. Those things were discussed at length, in depth, throughout Personnel Committee meetings in April, May, and June.
You may have to check your other folder, because I know some of Ms. Fai's emails go to the other folder for some reason. I know to check now, so. Yeah, I guess they figure that your emails aren't focused enough. I don't know, but it goes to the other.
Always made a comment, I'm against Act One. I believe that the state just makes sure that every district, the 500 districts, raise their taxes, that figure 2 to 3%, and that's the way they adjust everything. And that's why I always am against it, because it constantly gives the taxpayer the 2% every year. And as the years build up, it's created enormous tax bills.
But I think what you had also asked about was positions that are budgeted for but not filled. I know, like the HVAC job description, like, is that budgeted for but not filled? Because I know we need HVAC people. Now, was there anything from this year, and I'm trying to not be specific because you know what I'm cranky about, that was paid for this year? Is it not on the budget? Our assistant to the superintendent for teaching and learning, you know, the reason why we're here. If, for those who don't know, I'm, you know, more than cranky about that. But anyway, as Mr. Pettyjohn here sits here and laughs, I can hear it. I told him I'm going to make him look like he's the sane one tonight. But any other positions that we would have been like we would have had that just aren't being filled or aren't filled? Because I think
There's a number of positions. I mean, there's over 1,000 employees in the district. People come, people go. So we budget for positions. There are a number of positions, I'm sure, that are vacant that we've budgeted for that haven't been filled.
So let's ask this question. Is every position that we had this year and the last 2 years currently being budgeted for again?
I would say, yeah.
So then I have another question. On the one slide, you only had 3 positions as new, but yet there's job descriptions and other stuff for the federal programs coordinator and the EL coordinator, which would technically be new positions, but that weren't listed. So are they budgeted or are they not budgeted?
Those 2 positions are currently filled by teachers on special assignment. The rationale behind moving those people and jobs to Act 93 is for continued dedicated commitment to those functions. You know, we have an additional 100 EL learners. Our coordinator currently, recently presented to our Instructional Affairs Committee related to function and form and contributions to that position. We agree with her. They're critical. They're important. More EL kids are coming our way. We have never had the continuity or organization in that part of our world that she brings, and we hope to continue. It's student achievement, student advancement. Our federal programs coordinator, also currently teacher on special assignment. She's done a remarkable job. We recommend to you that she be made an Act 93 employee to continue her focus on those programs and additional federal grant responsibilities through ESSER. She's done such a remarkable job that our audit was incredible. Best federal programs audit we've ever experienced here in Ben Salem. She's been invited to Harrisburg to address her federal program peers and colleagues on how to manage federal funds.
And to answer your question, Mr. Price, the reason those aren't addressed in the increase, it's not affecting our budget. Those positions are paid entirely out of federal funds.
And the other advantage that those 2 recommendations provide is it puts a dedicated classroom in the positions that they would vacate, not a continuous cycle of long-term subs.
Just to say something too, if there is a zero tax decrease with the Homestead Act being elevated, some people will be getting a lower tax bill from last
Definitely.
year.
If there's no increase, some people,
Okay.
a lot of people will be
And
getting.
and not to mention the senior citizen rebates, Mark. And you
Right.
guys up that number last year. You saw last May the list of rebates provided back to our supporters and
Yeah.
community
And
members.
for the administration and board to act on a 0% decrease, please. Thank you.
So, John, I just want to be clear, really clear on these couple positions. There's 0 impact to the district in the budget for those 2 positions. They are 100% covered under federal funds,
They're 100% covered with federal funds,
including their PESers and everything else.
including their PESers and everything else.
And it will always be that way.
It'll always be that way unless someone elects to change it, but yes, those positions are 100% included in our federal programs budget.
And do any of the surrounding districts have this position, or will we be the first?
I would say most district, if not, I'd say every district our size and even districts smaller than us have this position. We're one of the exceptions not having this position as a full-time. Most districts, 3,000 students and up have this position.
To be clear, we did have somebody doing this job. It just wasn't their only job. I don't want people thinking that we were just kind of handing bits and pieces to people.
No, we took care of those requirements differently.
Can I hear from the people who voted no what they would like to have changed? And we can, I guess, make the changes until we get 5 people who say yes.
0%. Do it.
I also agree that 0% increase. And just to add that if we're worried about 4 years down the road, we're saying that it's only a $7 something increase per year. So we're not gonna set ourselves or the community or the district in such a bad shape if it's only $7 a year. This year, right, so multiply that by 4 years, it still won't be as bad. And
It'll
with
be
the
worse because the
federal funds
deficit will be
coming in-
bigger. This year, the $7 is because it's only 1.7%. In 4 years, you're going to be 5% or whatever the max of allowable rate is. It's not going to be $7. It's going to
Right,
be more
and-
significant.
And the one thing, this is the first time since 2006 that the homestead amount was increased. So for 16 consecutive years, it stayed flat. This year, because of the funding that the state got, it was increased for the first time ever.
And the Esser's money will be gone too, right, John? So we've got Mr. Steffi, I'm sorry. It's summertime. I'm feeling a little informal. So now you've got those dollars that aren't coming in anymore. So 4 years from now, that's gone. The homestead dollars don't work out. You're not talking about $7 4 years from now. You're going to have to hit the public with a pretty significant increase just to try to break even.
Yeah.
I agree, but again, I'm back to 0% increase.
Same thing, 0% of the taxpayers would now is, so yeah, 0%, give you the vote.
What did we raise it last year? Half or a quarter? No, we didn't have an increase last year, and we didn't have an increase half.
Was no need last year.
We still had salaries and things to.
So is it a wish of the board for me to go back and I can rework the numbers without a tax increase and reintroduce it? No?
Yeah. I mean,
guess
I'm trying to be
my
fiscal
question is-
responsible for the board that comes after we're gone. I don't want to leave.
Anybody want to meet in the middle?
Well, what would that be?
No.
As in 1.7 middle?
Yeah, to 1 or 3/4.
3/4, or do you mean a quarter? Three
Well-
quarters is more than what.
No, I mean 0.75%, not 1.7. It'd be 0.75%.
If you go to 0, it's a no for me.
Correct, I'm a no on principle, as I explained, and it's going to take a lot for that to change.
I don't know how you can't do an increase. The way everything's going in this past year, everything's going up in price, and you might not be under budget in 3 months. You don't even know.
Trust me, we're all paying taxes. I don't want them increased either, but I'm trying to be, educate the kids and be, for 2 years, last year we didn't have an increase. The year before that, we had a half. And that was the year that COVID hit us hard.
So
And we did a half. Last year, we didn't do anything.
So I'll be real. I'd like to see 0, but I want to be a realist as well and not overly burden our taxpayers down the road. 1.7 seems like a lot to me. So I would consider a number, but I would not consider the whole 1.7. So if it stays at 1.7, I'll stay a no.
So let me ask a question. When we did the preliminary budget, was it 1.7? And
The first iteration, and then there was a discussion, the proposed final had the proposed final, if you recall, we went around the table and there were 5 board members who said the 1.7, so that was put
Right.
into the proposed
Right.
final.
Right. So the 5 board members were okay with 1.7 for the proposed final budget. What happened from then until now? I mean, you can approve the proposed and not approve this one. I get it, but I'd like to hear what happened from then till now. Like, why wasn't it a 0 at the proposed?
Well, I'll have to say that Mark and I were 0 at the proposed.
I believe I also was at 0 from day one.
My vote has definitely changed on that. Just good, my process is, there was a request to try to see working it down. And initially, my yes was based on getting at least, hopefully, it's my first time in this mix, is that the state budget, because there is significant increase, or at least projected increases. So that was it was with caution with that, and I was hoping, again, based on an experience, that would be able to be released to be able to make this determination. I'm also looking at, I know things are going up, but we also live in a place where there's a lot of people who are having more opportunities to lose their homes. And to Petty John's report, it is something that I just talked today, looking 4 years down the road, that may be something that's going to be in my consideration now. And just out of knowledge and talking here, so just wanted to share why I had a change of heart to your question.
So where are we at?
I wish the board,
What,
just go with that 0.
what would a quarter,
3/4 would be the most reasonable in the middle range to consider. I mean, I'm with Mark. I'd like to see a 0, but I want to be reasonable as well. So, I mean, to me, 1.7 just seems like high. I mean, I know what the range of the Act 1 is, and it's pretty high, and I think we're way at the lower end, but with how we proposed it and what's going on and what's available to us, I just don't see the need for the full 1.7. So, I mean, I think as a group, we should come somewhere in the middle. Even though there are a bunch of us want 0, we should probably be realists too. And some of you guys are going to be here for the next 3 years, and you don't want to set yourself up either for a crash and need a huge impact at one time. It's probably better to ease it a little bit slower than one huge impact, maybe at a time when it's not good.
If you're looking at, it's about, if you're going from 1.7 to 0.75 is 0.95%, you're looking at approximately $1 million. Our revenue for real estate taxes is a little over $100 million. 1% is roughly equivalent to $1 million. Yeah. I'd have to go back and look at that.
So let's just, yeah, let's just add to this, date. The June 30th date is hard. July 1, the school code doesn't have any leeway for extensions or whatever. It has to be passed by June 30th and submitted. So we have today, tomorrow, and it'd really be nice to have a decision today. So, not like there's a ton of pressure, but there's some.
Do we know where the ninth vote stands?
No. She sent me a message saying she can't hear, but I guess she can hear now. Yes.
To zero or some number in between is not going to trigger the need to re-advertise or to go through any.
As we've said, I mean, the proposed budget is just that. The board is always free to make changes on the proposed budget. You've properly advertised the proposed budget, and again, you can make changes to that in the final.
And just a reminder, state money is still tax money. So whether you're paying it that way or paying it this way, or they're getting you coming or going, it's not like the state's over there just printing. They might be, but it's still your tax dollars.
So the reduction in real estate taxes from going from 1.7 to 0.75% would be $953,241. The increase would be 1.2371 mils. Increase to the median tax bill would be $28.33. And when you factor in the $57 for the increased homestead, the median taxpayer would see an actual decrease even with the 0.75 increase. Decrease would be $28.67. The median tax bill would be a decrease of $28.67, even with a 0.75% increase.
I can support that.
I think it's a fair compromise, more than fair.
I agree.
Okay.
I'll compromise as well.
4,
I suggested it, so.
5. He suggested. Okay, I'll go run the new numbers with the new resolutions, and I'll be back.
Remember, I'm a neg. I'm still a neg.
Okay,
I'll go with it.
okay. I'll go rerun those numbers real quickly.
Hey, Susan. Hey, can we recess until John comes back with the numbers and then start this back up for the vote? Do I need a mo- You know, I'd like to accept the motion to recess.
So moved.
Second, Kim?
Sorry, Sue.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, we're in recess until John gets back. Mr. Steffi. Yeah, we probably should go in executive and finish that up. So we're going to resume the budget. All right, guys, now that TV Land is back in, we're going to resume the budget portion before going into the regular action meeting. So I'd like to call the budget meeting back to order. And we are back to section 4.01, final operating budget. For those following around, item 1 and item 3 have changes. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 have 0 changes. 4.02 is a 0 change. So I'll read items 1 and 3 that have the changes so they could be on the record. That the final operating budget reflect revenues of $167,101,940 and expenditures in the amount of $169,001,248, with the difference between the level of expenditures and revenues being addressed by a drawdown of $1,899,308 from the fund balance. Be approved for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. The grant revenues and expenditures be approved pending receipt of rewards estimated to total $8,493,692 for the fiscal year 2022-2023. Again, item 2 remains unchanged. Item 3, that the millage rate for real estate for the 2022-2023 fiscal year be set at 1.66.18% mills, and that a discount of 2% be allowed on the payment of real estate taxes within 60 days of date of bill, and that the penalty of 10% be added on payment made after 120 days. So again, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and item 2 remain unchanged. So I'd like to make a motion to approve that. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the budget resolution 4.0 to 1 to 4.08.
Motion to approve.
That's Mike Stewart. So
Second, Rivera.
Mike Stewart.
Mike Stewart.
Questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Harder, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that, just want to make an executive session announcement. We did meet in executive session to discuss personnel matters and labor negotiations. So with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the budget
So
portion.
moved.
Second.
Rivera and Cohen.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And just a little note, it's going to be a couple minutes so we can convert from this meeting to the other on the live stream. So we'll be in recess until they can make the